Well, well, well. We're back again.
Welcome back. Hello there, Lisa.
Hi, Jennifer. Are you ready?
I'm ready to go. We
Okay.
took a week off, so we have like nothing. We have full content today. It's going to be great.
We have a build up.
We have a buildup of excitement.
Yeah, welcome to our escape.
Yep.
Well, today we're talking about a topic that gets my mind reeling. What is it like to be a therapist in therapy and kind of some career considerations with that? It's kind of a challenging space for us to navigate, even though we help people navigate it all the time. So,
Yeah, this is an interesting topic and one we can both speak about personally with
yeah,
life experience.
yeah. I always think therapists should probably either be in therapy currently or have done some of their own substantial work in order to be effective or in order to really understand what life is like on that side of the couch
Yeah.
type of thing. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
I agree. I think all the trainings and teachings have been awesome that I've taken in my career, but nothing has quite okay, this is my take because I don't know if
mhm.
you would say the same because of what you said before we started this. But from my experience, the things that have made me, in my opinion, like a way better therapist has been my time being a client and my experience with a therapist that I saw. But that might be because of the dynamic, like because I feel like I really like just love the therapist herself. But yeah, I do. I think it's important if we're gonna like hold space here and let like hold people's vulnerability, like it should kind of be required that you're also playing in that field also.
Being a therapist, it's really hard nowadays that everything's on telehealth. So I've had situations where I see, let's say, two clients back to back, and that is a space where I am in the zone. I'm really listening. I'm giving a lot of feedback. It's a lot of give on my end and, kind of like reading the room and stuff like that. So I have my 8 o'clock, my 9 o'clock, 10 a.m. rolls around. Then it's my therapy session. I'm sitting at the same desk that I was just
Yeah.
being the therapist in. And
Yeah.
I've tried, like, okay, I'm going to go sit somewhere else for my therapy session so it doesn't feel like I'm still in my office. Um, but I think that has something to do with it. All of a sudden, you are thrown into the role of like, okay, now it's your turn. Now you be vulnerable. And I feel like sometimes I have a hard time switching. Like I'm still in that role of like, but what do you need? And
Yeah.
as therapists, as providers, we are not supposed to self-disclose just willy-nilly or just because. Um,
Like so you're doing therapy in the same room and you're like exerting yourself, you are like showing up for your clients and working, and then suddenly like the hour changes and you're supposed to like shift your whole like feelings into this I'm taking from someone, but you're looking at the same computer screen, so it's like very hard to
yeah.
shift.
Yeah. So I limit what I share
Yeah.
to clients. And I think
Yes.
ethically, therapists should probably do that. You get clients that come to therapy and you're like, have you done counseling before? What was helpful? What wasn't so helpful? And they're like, oh, that therapist just talked about herself the whole time.
Yeah.
I do not want someone to say that about me. That's that's not the space for that.
Yeah.
So me jumping into a session where like it's okay to share like absolutely anything, it's a really big 180 in that sense. So I typically try to have space after my therapy session. Like I have a client at 8, a client at 9, my own therapy at 10. I'll
Yeah.
probably take the 11 o'clock hour as a break and then see someone else at 12 or something like that. I try to create the space so I can get back into seeing my clients with quality, but it's definitely tricky, especially like on telehealth where there's no commute in between or there's no real difference between the person that you're looking at as a client and then all of a sudden the person you're looking at as a therapist. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
hmm
It
yeah,
paints the same exact picture in your mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it takes me a little bit to warm up in therapy sessions if they're scheduled in that way, to
Yeah.
be like, okay, let me put a different hat on.
I feel like a way I would say what you're doing. Nice visual. She just put a hat on. But I relate to that. And also, I think I relate to that when I'm the therapist, that sometimes when I've gone, I feel like this happened to me yesterday when I went to therapy. I feel like it takes me maybe 30 minutes of the session to calm down
Mm,
from my life. Like, I've been working on the concept of meditation and like calming down more during the day and not riding that cortisol stress thing as like full throttle and like trying to relax more. But yesterday, I thought to myself, like halfway through the session, like if I would have just done some deep breaths and meditation before this session, I wouldn't have spent so much of my time and money with this therapist, like just calming down so that we could get to the work.
mm,
Um, but when you are booking clients right before, like there's no time for that either. And
yeah,
to be fair, I had time for it to calm down first yesterday, and somehow I didn't. But it's tricky.
yeah. I think the co-regulation in the therapy space is
Yeah.
also important. Or for me, since I've had some mixed experiences with therapists, I tend to go into the session feeling them out, seeing what kind of a space they're in. I think it's like a gift and a curse, definitely, to be so perceptive regarding body language, because there could just be one little thing, and I'm just like, I'm done. They're not in this today, you
Yeah.
know? And I'm like, of course, I would want my clients to have some sort of amount of grace with me to where, you know, I might make a face or something like that and them not completely shut down,
Yeah.
but me just like being in the therapy space all the time where it's like give, give, give. I think I expect more out of a therapist or like, I'm like, am I being too picky? Because I'm like, I would have responded in a certain way to a client and it's just so hard to flip roles all of a sudden.
It is very, very hard. I suspect that there's something about most therapists' wiring that we are more comfortable or safe in the other role
Hmm.
and are not naturally going to like go deep or talk even in friendships. I don't know. I would test that with our friendship because I don't feel that. Like I feel like there's like a lot of safety and trust, so I don't reserve. But it takes a lot of like a long time for me to like open up to someone. And so, yeah, it just sounds to me like you're coming in with some suspicion towards those therapists. Like, but
Yeah.
not like, okay, hold on. Tell me if this is right. It doesn't sound like you're saying I'm suspicious of you with your body language and your face because I think you're not a safe person. It sounds like you're saying I don't think you're really going to be able to show up and hold what I have today.
Hmm.
And if
Yeah.
you're not here for it, forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Or I'm like, I work so hard, like to be super present and to provide really good quality counseling for my
Okay.
clients.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if my therapist is burnt out, or like, I know what it's like for your eyes to be crossing and be like half listening. I know what that's like.
Yep.
And I have like pulled focus and done things to make sure that's not happening in my sessions. But I'm like, I deserve the same courtesy. Are they here for that? No.
Okay, but have you ever been with a therapist as the client and thought to yourself, like, wow, this therapist, like, I am learning from them because because of how good they are, and like, they're like as good or better than me as a therapist, or has it been the opposite in your experiences?
Like when I have a client who's also a therapist,
No, when you've gone to therapy, the people you've seen, do you feel like they are equivalent, better, or worse therapists than you?
oh my gosh, that's such a hard question because I'm
I
like, I don't
know.
want to, I don't want to sound cocky.
They're not going to hear you.
Well, okay, the MMPI too,
Yeah.
the personality inventory. Like, I think there's a question on there that says like it's all true and false, right? But it's like true or false. I am I am typically smarter than the average person or something like that. If you say true, I think it like nudges up the narcissism like category. And if you say false, it might like contribute to like the self-depreciation category or something. There's like some sort of science with the MMPI too. But it's like that type of a question. Like, okay, am I the smartest in the room anymore? Like, do I tend to think that I have some sort of advantage over society? And yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Or it's like, will I ever find a therapist that meets my expectation or is at the same level? Because like for our listener, I practice a therapy called EMDR. I know that protocol back to front, like my hand. I have it all memorized. I know what to do next. It's just like boom, 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 like clockwork to me. And so me going to therapy and the other therapist doing EMDR, I can tell if they're not following the protocol, or I can tell if they're waffling or asking stuff just because, stuff like that. So for me, going into a space where like I objectively do know a lot of information about something, it's like, how do I put that to the side and just be present and just allow for a therapeutic relationship to form without
Yeah.
me trying to micromanage it and be like, this is the next question, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Can I give you a piece of advice I'm thinking of?
Yes.
Okay, if I could manage your life for you, this is what I would do. I would find you a therapist that was older than you with like a significant amount of more experience in the industry and a significant amount of like, if you're an EMDR guru and you're also a consultant, I would find a consultant's consultant. And to use
Right.
our high control
Right.
MLM terms, I would go 2 steps up the pyramid and find someone that was in your upline
Yeah.
that you
I
really respect.
I need to be the downline. Like I
Yes.
can't be getting therapy from a downline, you
Yeah.
know?
No,
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't. Like, that will not be helpful.
Yeah. And I don't it's like we all start out somewhere. Every therapist starts off with a first session, shaking, not knowing what to do, like looking through a binder of worksheets, trying to
Yes.
figure out what can I give this person
Spilling them on the floor, perhaps. Oh my
who did
gosh.
that.
Nightmare.
Oh my gosh. But
Oh, it's so tough.
it's like in the beginning, there's a worksheet for that. Like we tend to use crutches and stuff like that. But for someone that is in the therapy industry to have a therapist that's waffling, it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to watch. Um, it's like a chef going to a terrible restaurant.
Yes. And that's just because you know more. Like, I don't think it's because you're difficult. I think it's because you do this for a job and you're going to need a little more like I just think I wonder what it would be like for you to sit with someone who is your therapist that you were really impressed by.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, but I'm curious.
What it would be like for me to have a therapist that impresses me, that I'm like,
Yes.
oh, they know what they're doing.
Yes.
Okay. I'll let you know if the day arrives.
Okay, I will be following along very closely.
Yeah, I think that's the good thing about the EMDR space. That's one of the only advantages of this pyramid that we're all on, that people have
Yeah.
like ranking systems,
Yeah.
is that they're vetted through the process and you can tell who has been doing it for longer, like how many hours people have. It's like, okay, you're getting on an airplane, the pilot has 100 flight hours or the pilot has 100,000.
Yeah.
Which pilot do you want to choose? And you can see that with EMDR therapists of like, where they're at on the pyramid. So,
I agree with you. I think that there's nuance to that. Like there's some things we hate about that high structure, but in some ways it's useful. And I think it's of course possible that someone who is a second year into the career could just like instinctively be like an outstanding therapist. And I think there could
mhm.
be a really crappy therapist who had been doing it for 20 years.
Oh, for sure.
But statistically, I think your odds are better with someone who's taken more trainings, taught the material, a little bit older.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Yeah. But at the
That's what
same
I
time,
did.
red flag for me is when the therapist has so much time on their hands to where they have a different certification every time you see them.
True.
Yeah. I'm like, do you see clients other than me? How do you
Yeah.
have all this time on your hands? I
I
am such a
think
snob. I'm a therapy snob, I swear.
The title of this episode should be Do We Have Trust Issues?
Yeah. I'm like, am I the only sucker that's seeing this person?
Oh my gosh.
Um, so okay, advice to our listeners. Uh, it's common for therapists to offer a 15-minute consultation. Take advantage of those consultations. Get a feel for their vibe. If you go to one session and don't feel like going back, maybe go back for the sake of leaning into some of that anxiety or, exposing yourself to some of the uncertainty. But if after two sessions it's not feeling right, you don't have to go back. It's not
Yeah.
realistic to mesh personalities with every single person. And as therapists, we know that when people don't come back and stuff, you know, maybe we don't have the skill set that they're needing. Maybe we remind them of something, of someone that is like hard for them to talk to us because of that. Nothing to do with us. Sometimes it has something to do with our limitations, but there's always that understanding of like, the client is the priority. So if you don't want to go back to a certain therapist, it's okay and it's super normal. It happens all the time.
That's really good advice.
Hmm. Yeah. I
Yeah.
always tell people too, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Like if you end up asking me for referrals, even just like
Yeah.
to to switch here locally, if you want some referrals, that's not going to hurt my feelings. You're the priority, and sometimes I can't deliver everything someone's looking for.
I have a secondary piece of advice.
Yes, for me or in general.
In general, to the listeners, um, it is okay to have trust issues if you, for any reason. Like, and I think of myself in this, like, I have trust issues because we talk about religion a lot, but like, one of the reasons is because I came out of a situation where there was a expert, kind of like, I'll tell you what to do, you listen, and I have very deep scars from how that ended up harming me. I have trust issues. And so it took me a very, very, very long time, even with a very, very experienced therapist. So I did the thing I just told you to do. I found the person with the most certifications in one modality who was a bit older than me, and I hit the jackpot. And they were an incredible person and trustworthy and take it very seriously. So, like, it exists. And if you lived here, I would just tell you go see her. But even then, like it took me a very long time to trust her, and I eventually told her, like, I'm afraid that you are mad at me. When I was finally able to be honest with her in the session, which I don't know, months in, and I could kind of like tell her, like, I got to tell you something. I'm having this thought, and I realized that I was just listen to the thoughts in your head and just say what they are. Like it's okay. And I was just like, I noticed that when you're the way you're looking at me right now, I feel like you're mad at me, and I'm worried about that. And we had to work on our relationship for the whole session, and it was like one of the most beautiful therapy sessions. But back to my advice is you may need to fire people and move forward and like just try out a lot of different ones, and you might need to go real shallow and not deep, and that's fine.
Mhm. Yeah, I think some therapists early on, and myself included, I've been clumsy about stuff, I think some therapists early on, like they either want you to get to this stuff, yeah, now. Oh my gosh, that was Spanglish. Or
Yeah.
yeah. Or they dance around it and it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of just like BS sessions.
Yes.
So yeah, finding someone that can play with that nuance of what you're needing and what's tolerable for you at the time is super valuable. Um, yeah, I'm glad you were in that space to be able to say, this is what I'm noticing between us. Because a lot of therapy or a lot of the prediction of success in therapy has to deal with the relationship between the client and the therapist.
Yes, it
So,
does.
mhm.
And I was thinking in my head, even if I wouldn't have admitted to myself during a lot of the sessions, I was thinking, I wonder what she's thinking about me right now.
Mm. Yeah.
And I just like wanted her to like me. I wanted her to think I was a good therapist. I wanted her to not be mad at me. And then at one point, I recognized that like I was scared she was going to get mad at me the way my mom used to get mad at me. And I was literally, I recognized like I'm projecting my mother-daughter stuff onto this person. And and we this is what the session that led to her playing a game with me.
I
And
remember that.
yeah, I've told Elisa this story, but like because I told her I'm afraid you're mad at me, and we started working on that. And she always talks about like how your body is. Like I was like, I'm afraid right now. And we're telehealth, and so she was like, I don't know how she thought to do this. It was just so good. And she was like, I'm gonna turn off my screen for a second. And so she clicked her camera off. My whole body relaxed. And then we talked just like our voices, and I told her like I'm like so much more relaxed. As soon as she flipped her screen back on and my visual field got her face, I was like, I feel it again. I'm nervous you're there.
Hmm.
And like, oh, that was such an insightful session to realize it. Oh, and then she started saying peekaboo. It's something about that made me connect with her as like playfully, and it sort of dissuaded the like she's mad at me. And we talked about connecting as little girl, like how our like younger parts would connect, and it really healed a lot for me in that session. So
That's just a brilliant intervention that I don't know if you'd find that in any book or anything. Like it's so developmentally appropriate with what you were expressing and everything. And for her to come up with it in the moment is
I
really
know,
cool. Yeah.
I know, she's like really good.
She's on another level. You guys think we're somewhat intelligent? Like there's people out there that they are impressive.
Yeah, I agree. There's like definitely. And also, okay, there are like superhero therapists, and also I was thinking this when you were talking about like, are we not trusting? But like, I've walked into some appointments with humans after cancer, and like they just listened to me and they didn't provide any strategic therapy. And sometimes they were
Mhm.
like, not even like maybe they would just give me advice, which is like not what you do in therapy. And it was so helpful just to have another human being listen to me.
Yeah.
So the standards were low and it still was helpful. So
Yeah.
great.
Sometimes in session, I will have like a sneezing attack or coughing or something like that. And my clients are talking about stuff and then they're like, bless you, blah, 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 bless you, blah, 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 bless you. And I'm just like, okay, when AI takes over my job, you won't have to deal with a robot sneezing and
Yeah.
interrupting the session. Uh, but okay, so topic. AI taking over therapy.
Okay.
Okay, we experimented with this
We did.
when we were in person because Jennifer is a chat GPT wizard and she made a bot that's based upon one of the modalities that she enjoys. So it had to watch like all these videos of a certain therapist. It had to read a bunch of material and stuff. And then we tested it out to see how it did in a session.
Yes.
And the presenting concerns were very extreme.
That's true. We should have given it more realistic ones. Maybe it would have been better.
Well, I was like totally egging it on.
That's
Like,
true.
I was like, I'm freaking out right now. Um,
Yeah.
but the that therapy bot, we came to the conclusion that it talked too much. Remember?
Yeah. And it was giving me the scripts that I had like programmed it with.
Hmm.
And it wasn't it, like usually I think when ChatGPT is its best, it feels more it you can't detect that it's scripted, but
Yeah,
you could detect it was scripted. And then it
sure.
started repeating the script and you were like, okay.
Yeah,
This is clearly a computer.
yeah. I think the tip that I received in grad school that I use the most in therapy sessions is the formula for a balanced therapy session, which is the therapist. It's listen, 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 speak, listen, listen, speak, speak. So that's how the ideal therapy session would flow, according to this professor I had. And so listening a lot at the beginning and then throwing in some feedback, right? And then listen, listen some more. And then at the end, speak, speak is kind of like, giving someone a place to land or giving them, something to carry into their week, something to focus on until next time, homework assignment, however you want to say.
Yeah.
But with the chat GPT one, it was a lot of speak, 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 speak,
True.
speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was something missing about like the attunement or, you know, just having someone to be nodding or like, shoot, like I feel that. Yeah. that shouldn't have happened.
Co-regulation.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
co-regulation. Exactly. Yeah.
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 There's that a computer cannot do that
Yeah.
well. I
Right.
agree. And that's the thing that like AI will probably never have is like literally another human being that is our same species is sitting across from you. And there's something about telling your story and that they hear you is good.
Yeah.
I like that. Listen, 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 speak,
Speak.
speak,
Mhm.
then listen, listen, speak, speak.
Yes,
That
that's
is
it.
like a very helpful model of like a typical session because you're not going to
Yes.
front if you yeah, if I've been in therapy before with the other therapist and if you walk in and they just want to talk at you or to you, you're like, I'm not paying for this.
Yeah, when I say I've done clumsy things, I've done that before, where it was more listen, speak, 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 listen, speak. You know,
Yeah,
that's super clumsy as
I
a
agree.
therapist. Yeah. But, that's why I think it's so good for therapists to do their own therapy because you being aware of that, or I'm feeling anxious, so I'm monopolizing the conversation. Just having that awareness and being able to work through that in your own therapeutic space ends up being really valuable for the people that you are talking to. So you can take that time to slow down and listen without your own stuff getting in the way.
Totally agree. I think the best skill set a therapist has is like the ability to listen and stay regulated in their own space. So you attune enough that you can imagine how the client feels, but you're not going underwater with them. So you're feeling it, but you're also like taking deep breath. Like for me, anyway, like I'm breathing. If I'm on my best day, I'm breathing, I'm staying in my like calm centered space while I listen. And then this is the kicker, what you said, like a very well thoughtfully constructed question or reflection statement that is short after they've spoken.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
the kicker.
Yeah. That brings us to empathy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was telling you this the other day. A lot of people think that we're born with empathy or, oh, that person's a natural empath. Good for them. They have that gift. You know, in all reality, if I could take the curtain away from the magician or, from the Wizard of Oz, right? Peeling back the curtain of the therapy industry is every therapist had to be taught empathy in grad school.
Yeah.
And we had worksheets where we practiced writing out empathy statements. We had mock sessions and conversations where our only job was to reflect back to the person with empathy and identify the emotions that they were feeling at the time. Yeah, that made you feel sad because you lost your dog in the
Yeah.
park. Like just an elementary empathy statement makes such a big difference. And
Yes.
yes, it can be taught. And so someone being like, "Oh, I don't relate to people well. I don't tend to be empathic." Well, you can learn to be if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The master at this was Sue Johnson.
Okay.
Not to throw out names that a listener wouldn't know, but like Sue Johnson's modality was emotionally focused therapy, which is for couples, but she has like really good videos. Like you can watch her talk and interact. And she is very good at, and she writes it in her book, like she explains her intention behind this. She's
Hmm.
really good at hearing the client's core emotional thing and then looking at them and saying, she'll say it like this. She'll go in her nice voice, like, I want to make sure I really, really get it. So you feel like when he turns away from you, that you are desperate, that he's never going to turn back. And she kind of takes the emotional experience they're describing. She'll add a little bit of insight with attachment language and just
Hmm.
give this like beautiful moment. But she's so good at it because it's emotionally focused. So she's pulling the
Yeah.
emotion out of the client's statement and
Yeah.
reflecting it with like very like connected. And
Hmm.
she's like, it makes you feel like she's like, oh, that, it must be so painful to feel that.
Yeah. So
Good.
that type of therapist that's just like really leaning in, like physically leaning in. That's
Yes.
not someone whose eyes are crossing because they're tired at the end of the day.
Yeah.
This is someone that's very invested in the client's goals or in the couple's attunement together or in them learning.
Yeah.
It's not just a willy-nilly thing of like, oh, tell me about your day. Like that's real connection. And when you're saying that like a computer can't replicate that, I don't think it can.
Yeah. I think it's labor intensive. It's emotionally and I think you can work on finding a way to do that level of care without burning out fast, but it can get tiring if you do it for 8 hours. I mean, that's
Hmm.
a lot of intense emotional, like that's like a marathon. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. Sitting back and just like listening to someone's like life and giving some statements and like, kind of vanilla E is
Yeah.
different than like the
Yeah.
way that she's modeling like her like very connected, attuned
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I think the hardest thing in therapy is when there's no solution and just
Yeah.
sitting with this is really complex and I hate this for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard.
I know. But the more that I think we're aware of, okay, so if you don't do your own work in therapy or your own work in your life about
Hmm.
existential crises, and if you're uncomfortable sitting with some of those hard truths and you haven't worked on that on your own, it's going to be real. I mean, first of all, I don't think a therapist is going to get through it very long before they figure out they have to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
And
like, yeah,
I mean, after the first few years of therapy, when you learn that there isn't a worksheet for this, or there isn't
yeah,
some sort of band-aid, or
no,
people don't always leave therapy feeling better,
no,
like recognizing that I think is a really good first step in being able to sit with that and hold space with it and everything.
I
But
agree.
yeah, it's challenging.
It
Being a
is.
therapist is hard because we read everything. We read
Yeah, we're
people.
like really attuned to people.
Yeah. So for better or for worse.
That's who we are, our
Yep.
cute little selves. That's just how we were made.
Yep.
Fine.
Well, wish us luck in our therapy journeys.
Good luck to everyone, man.
Yeah. It's tough out there.
I could talk about this for like four more podcasts. This was fun.
Okay. Well, we'll hit it next time.
Yeah, head in next time. Circle back to this another time, but like that's it for today. Have a wonderful whatever day of the week it is for you.
Bye.
Bye.